for the gentleman who said, I should have known I had 2 bypass surgeries, a hip replacement, you need for prostate cancer and diabetes. I'm half blind, can't hear anything quieter than a Genevieve. Take 40 different medications that make me dizzy, winded, and subject to blackouts. And also with dementia. And poor circulation, hardly feel my hands and feet. Can't remember if I'm 85 or 92. I've lost all my friends, but thank goodness I still have my driver's license. One more. This one was called the Catholic Horses. Salesmen at the horse race explain the follies and all of losing his shirt. He notices a priest step up on the track and bless the forehead of one of the horses lined up for the 4th race. Lo and behold, that horse, or long shot, won a race. Next race, as the horses lined up, the priest stepped in the track, and sure enough, he blessed one of the horses. The salesman made a beeline for the betting window and placed a small bet on the horse. And again, even though it was another long shot, the horse won the race. Well, this guy, the salesman, plucked his wings and anxiously waited to see which horse the priest was going to bless next. He bet big on it, and he won big on it. As the races continued, the priest kept blessing long shots. The salesman was elated. He made a quick dash to the ATM, went through all of his savings, and waited for the priest's blessing that would tell him which horse to bet on. True to the pattern, the priest stepped down to the track for the last race and blessed the forehead of his old nag that was the longest shot of the whole day. This time, the priest blessed the eyes and the ears and the hooves of the old nag. Well, the salesman knew he had a winner and bet every cent he owned on it. Then he watched dumbfounded as the old man came in last. In a state of shock, he went to the track area where the priest was. Confronting him, he demanded, Father, what happened? All day long you blessed horses and they all won. Then the last race, the horse you just lost on a mile. Now, thanks to you, I've lost every cent of my savings. Well, the priest nodded wisely with sympathy. Son, he said, that's the problem with you Protestants. You can't tell the difference between a simple blessing and the last rites. As was mentioned, I've written a couple of books, What You Take to Heaven, the Other Side, Afterlife, on this subject, because what could be more important than what happens when we die? There is nothing that even approaches being important. And you know, as a journalist, as well as a fully believing Catholic, of course, I like to see various evidence, and we have all of these. We're blessed to be in this time when there are all of these accounts of so-called near-death experiences with people who have clinically died. You know, their heart rate is no longer measurable, no respiration, no blood pressure, no brainwave activity, which is how they declare death. And yet they'll come back sometimes after 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes as long as an hour or more. In some cases, exhibiting signs of rigor mortis, and yet be revived and come back and be able to describe another realm in a way that is entirely consistent with other thousands and tens of thousands, and in fact, and I don't say these numbers, there's the millions of other such accounts where people come back and describe the hereafter in a very consistent way, whether they're Catholic or Protestant, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, even in some cases agnostic or atheist. And this has a a journalist as well as a believing Catholic, I find to be extremely impressive and informative. Recently, the medical examiner at Lourdes came out with a book endorsing near-death experiences. This is the doctor who is in charge of investigating all of the health, all of the medical miracles of Lourdes. And he came out with a book saying, look, these cases have a lot to tell us about life and the afterlife. You need to pay attention to them, and his book was endorsed strongly. The introduction to his book was written by his bishop. I'd like to just read a couple excerpts from one of his accounts that had to do with Padre Pio. He had a letter from an abbot named John Darrow, and it was certified and so forth. He was a spiritual son of Padre Pio, St. Padre. And he was there in Algeria during a war there, during the Algerian War there, the Algerian National Liberation Front. And as one day he received a card from Padre Pio, and it just had two handwritten lines. And it said, life is a constant struggle, but it leads to the light. And underlined 2 or 3. That very night, this guy, who were attacked by the Algerian army and his fellow abbot, along with others around him, was killed. Except, unlike the others around him, he later miraculously came back to life. He was alive. And when he came back, he recounted, he said, I immediately had the experience of a disembodiment. I saw my body next to me, fallen and bloodied in the midst of my comrades who were also dead. I began a curious ascension through a kind of tunnel. Many known and unknown faces emerged from the fog that surrounded me. At first, these faces were somber. They were faces of people who did not have such a good reputation, sinners lacking in virtue. As I went up, the faces I saw became more luminous. I was astonished to find I could walk. I could look around and see everything without turning. He could move without actually walking. And he wasn't feeling his wounds anymore. It was interesting because during this case he thought of his parents who lived in a room at his own home back in France. And as soon as he thought of them, he found himself in that room with his parents. And they were sleeping, but he noticed a piece of furniture they had moved, and then he left. And when he came later on, days later, weeks later, when he returned home, he mentioned the furniture to his parents, and they were baffled as to how he could have known that. He also, at one point, while he was quote dead on the boat, he thought of Pope Pius XII. And suddenly he found himself in the Pope's bedroom. The Pope was asleep, but he said he spoke through the exchange of thoughts since he was very spiritually attuned. Anyway, the reason I read this account is what he says next. He said, first of all, I saw thousands of people, all about 30 years old, and I met a few of them I had known when I was alive. I left this paradise with many extraordinary flowers that I had never known down below. I went even higher. There I lost all human nature and I became a drop of light. I saw many other drops of light, and I knew that one of them was St. Peter, another one was Paul or John or an apostle or a saint. Then I saw Mary in full radiance and beauty. She met me with her ineffable smile. Jesus was behind her, looking spectacularly beautiful, and behind him was an area of light that I knew was the Father, and I dove head on into it. There I felt total fulfillment of everything I could have ever desired. I experienced perfect happiness, and briskly I found myself back on earth with my face in the earth and the middle of my comrade's bloody body. In other words, he came back to life after this glimpse of heaven. This experience marked him for life. Later on, soon after again, he went to see Padre Pio, and when Padre Pio saw him in a hall as he was coming out, St. Francis Hall, he motioned for him to come over, and Abbott went over to him. Padre Pio gave a small sign of affection, and then he said, Padre Pio did, "Oh, you really took me for a ride this time, but what you saw was really beautiful, wasn't it?" And he stopped and didn't say anything else. We live forever. In light of that fact, nothing on earth, no challenge, no problem, no tragedy can stand up to the vastness of what comes afterwards. When people have these near-death experiences, they come back and they will tell you that all of these major things, the greatest of tragedies, losing a child, having a terrible illness, whatever it might be, in light of the light, in light of what they see, in light of what they now know for sure, all that seems minor. And life on earth seems like it was just a very momentary flash, and then there is eternity. Every second, life is so short, every second, every minute on earth counts, and we need to grasp every single minute and every single thing in life, because it is a precious opportunity to gain upward in the afterlife. As the abbot mentioned, there were different levels. Call it Purgatory, where he sees these faces of the sinners, and he has to go higher, and the faces become more luminous in that tunnel-like passage that he encountered, and so many others likewise do. Every single thing. God is perfect. He doesn't waste a second of your life. There are no coincidences. Everybody you have ever met, everybody you ever will meet, was there for some reason, however fleeting. We won't understand these things until we're on the other side, and that's one of the consistencies of people that have these experiences. They say that the first emotions, like the abbot, was this total sense of well-being, this feeling of, I'm home. This is my home. Earth wasn't my home. This is my home. Now I see. Now I understand. Now I can comprehend why I met this person or that person, why I have this problem. Everything suddenly comes together because, like, what they did there, I forget what you call it. You call it needle point or whatever you call it, where on the bottom it looks like a bunch of knots, and that's how life is, a bunch of knots. But when you see it from above, it's a beautiful pattern and it makes sense altogether. That's what life is. And because it's full of knots, we need to invoke Our Lady Undoer of Knots, because life is difficult, like Padre Pio told the abbot. Life is a constant struggle. We can do everything we want to try to make life on earth paradise, and it won't work because it isn't supposed to work. It is supposed to be a place of testing and purification. Once we realize that, we transcend sorrow. Once we realize that, we begin to see the light. The first Catholic, whoever reported these near-death experiences, The first one was a pope, and not only a pope, but one that was a doctor of the church. Well, Gregory the Great in the 6th century. Not really sure the dates, but the 6th century. And he logged details of various accounts of people who even back then died and came back with these descriptions, not just of heaven, but also of hell, which we'll be discussing in a short bit. Now, in our modern times, because we have such medical technology, there are many, 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 many more of these cases, and of course we have more people. So we're getting all these accounts, and what they describe is truly awesome, and the correct use of that word. Truly awesome, what they describe, because they take us, when they describe it, to a land, as was mentioned, with these flowers that are unfamiliar to them because they're beautiful beyond flowers on earth. You may see something that's a gigantic white-petaled flower but with a gold center, or you may see a plant that is not just a vine, but also with grapes on it, with lush grapes on it, but also with different colors on it. Colors unlike any we've seen on earth. Hundreds and hundreds of different colors. Described by some of these people as liquid fire, as colored fire, as liquid light. Around where a seer in Africa at the church-approved apparition of Cabello in Rwanda, as she said during one of her trips, as they put it, journeys to the afterlife with the Blessed Mother, she said that, how do you describe a place where you can drink light? How do you describe a place, other people have said, where you can taste colors and touch sound? How do we describe a place like this where you can breathe water, the living waters? And that's another thing that's described, and something else we find in the book of Revelation, that, as it says in Revelation 3, he who overcomes thus is clothed in white. Again, the primary hero said that constant struggle. As it also said in Revelation 21, where it says that it describes structures that are transparent as if glass, and yet they're gold. And that's what they say. They see these incredible plants, and they see these roads that look like they're gold, except they're crystallized. They discuss, again, those living waters that are also mentioned in Scripture. Breathing these living waters, being cleansed with these living waters, and fountains, a sea of fountains in some cases, and everything is alive, even the water. Every drop of water seems to have its own tone and melody, musical. Every drop seems to be melodically instrumented into all the other beautiful music around. Music that is, as one person put, is as loud and penetrating as a trumpet, and yet as sweetly pitched as a flute, gliding as smoothly as a violin. All of this music in heaven that comes alive with the colors. This music that another person said was like 1,000 golden bells and twittering of birds and the most beautiful human songs, but millions of songs all melded together. We have this in front of us. We have this realm where there are trees that some of them look similar to Earth, but some are totally different. They seem gargantuan. Buildings seem to go on forever. One psychiatrist who had a near-death experience, Dr. George Ritchie, said that he saw a library there on the other side that was bigger than all of the buildings in Washington, D.C. put together. And they're not really even buildings, because how do you describe a place where there are buildings of buildings colors there. There's blazing light, there's liquid colors that are alive, but and deeper, richer, brighter, more varied than anything on earth. Colors in their essence and authenticity. Light comes from everything there. Everything, as I said, is living and praising God. And most of all, they said that when you go there, you will find that in that light of God, from Jesus, He is the mediator. He's recorded in these experiences. When you go into the light of that love, it's like the most you ever loved in your life multiplied by infinity. Again, this is not anything to be feared. That's another consistency. People who have near-death experiences say that once they're back, they no longer fear death whatsoever anymore. Lose all fear of death. Look at us poor humans here with the blindness of this world, and we, every day, at some point, probably near death, there's something related to it, an illness or whatever. It's on our minds for sure, especially driving around Toronto. It's very good. Another person said that if you took all of the love that every mother in history has ever had for their children, and put all this love together since the beginning of time, billions of mothers, it wouldn't be a fraction of what she felt when she went to that light, into God. All of a sudden, everything makes sense. And as it says in Revelation 3, we are given a robe, and that robe reflects who we really are. It can be extremely beautiful and pure, or it can have stain on it. And if it has stain on it, then we go to that great laundromat in the sky called Purgatory. We're not quite ready for entrance into the realm that I have been describing. And then they're talking about mortals and again, one thing you find when all of these folks return is that they will say it's simply impossible to describe what they have seen in human terms. Very good news too, in that, as was mentioned, everybody seems to be 25 to 35. That's pretty good. And better than that. Better than that, nobody is overweight. Well, we have sorrow in life, all this people die. One of the other comforting things, or many comforting things about these experiences, is that they say that most of these people consistent, and is that really consistent? That when you die, after you go to the light, after Jesus, after often an angel, your guardian angel, it'd be nice to meet him or her finally, right? I don't know if there's any gender in angels in heaven, but we'll find that out too. But it'd be nice to meet the angel that's been with you since your conception, since you entered this realm called earth, since you were created, your soul was by the Father. And then in this kind of bucolic setting, kind of a countryside. There's also cities of light there, but in the countryside, so many of these people say that they met their deceased loved ones. Those who were closest to them in life, whether it's a spouse, a parent, a child, a predeceased, or whomever, and people they were close to. Suddenly they see these people, even if if they have a baby who died young, they will see that person now as somebody who is between 25 and 35 years of age. In this place where really there is no age, and there is certainly no more decay, and there is no more aging, and there is no more death. If this sounds too good to be true, with God, with our great God, God is so vast, it's too good not to be true. good not to be true. You know, at Cabello, in Rwanda, which I referred to just a minute ago, I said that one of the seers had been taken by the Virgin Mary on a journey to the afterlife, and actually 3 of them. It's very interesting to see what happened to them, because they didn't have classic near-death experiences. They were simply put into a coma by the Virgin Mary at various times, not all at once. She wanted to show them the afterlife. I want to stress to you that this is a fully, officially, church-approved apparition that began in November of 1981. Anyway, this one named Alphonsine, hers occurred on her 17th birthday, and she warned everybody, because the Virgin told her to, she warned everybody what was going to happen, and to write a note to the headmaster as well as the bishop, telling them that it was going to look like she was dead, but don't bury her because she's going to be back. And then she went ahead, as she put it, my body will be here, but I'll be away until Sunday. And the Pope was such a bishop, church-approved apparition. She, Alphonsine, is now a cloistered nun in Rome. There was another person named there. I met her. Her name was Natalie. I met her when I was in Spain some years back, about 7 years back now. And she was the one who said you can breathe water, you can drink light. And she said that, and I found this kind of intriguing. And that she was taking not only to heaven but various levels of heaven. Just like Paul says, doesn't he, when he recounts that man, he knew that seemed to have left his body and that there were 2 or 3 heavens. He was in the 2nd or 3rd. I think there's many more than that. And so vast we have infinity to explore. But Natalie said that when she was in heaven, she called the highest person that she saw Isangano. And that means the place of communion, where there were 7 handsome men in pure white clothes, and they were in a circle creating gorgeous music but without instruments. And then she said that she said these people had so much joy and peace that she can't describe it. And then she was taking another place that was not quite as high, but it was still a beautiful, beautiful place. And there were millions of people dressed in white. They weren't quite as blissful as this in Ghana, but and this place is a lot more difficult to pronounce Isan Yawaza Zaba Shimo or something like that. The place of the cherished of God.